You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia. Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. This is Gowri.
And you're with Grace.
And this is, of course, your Anything Can Happen Friday on Durian ASEAN. And this happens every Friday.
Of course.
And this weekend we have Singapore celebrating their 50th Independence Day. And in line with that, we have invited three Singaporeans to talk to us about it. And of course, they're not here in the studio. They're all the way in Singapore, joining us via Skype. So let's say hello and good morning to them. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Hello. So we have Bernard, Nicholas, and Phoebe here. So perhaps we can let them introduce themselves first, starting with Bernard.
Hi, I'm Bernard. I'm currently in my last month of national service. I'm gonna ORD soon. That's a term for operationally ready dead.
Is that the real thing?
Yeah, that's the real term.
Okay.
ORD.
Right. And
Hi.
Nicholas?
Oh, hi. So I'm Nicholas. I work at a mobile and online ticketing platform called PTix. That's me, I guess.
All right. And lastly, Phoebe?
Hi everyone, I'm currently working as a project engineer in an engineering firm.
Okay, so all of you are Singaporeans, right? Just checking.
Yeah,
before we
true
proceed.
blue Singaporean,
Okay.
born and bred here.
So all three of you have lived in Singapore your whole lives?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So tell us about your first memory of Independence Day in Singapore. Maybe starting with Bernard.
My first memory of Independence Day was actually in primary school when I was singing National Day songs, waving the national flag. I was in a hall with hundreds of students, and we were all together. You know, it was really cohesive celebration, and it was very imprinted in my mind. You know? Yeah.
So do you feel like passionate or growing in love for Singapore?
I think that was natural, given that I was only around 10 years old.
Right.
I was really young at that time. You know, I really love Singapore.
Aw.
You make it sound like you don't love Singapore anymore.
Oh no.
Back then. What about Nicholas? What was your first experience?
So my first experience or my remembrance actually is slightly vague, but I recall being in the old National Stadium
Okay.
for one of the National Day parades with my family. So when I was really young, my dad was part of something called the RC, like Residents Committee, which kind of it's the residents involved in different estates, and they help to manage the estates the residential estates. So
right.
we get free tickets. Yeah, so it's pretty vague, but yeah, that's what I remember of my.
Do you remember what you were doing? Were you waving any flags? Were you singing songs?
So I'm definitely sure there's a lot of flag waving and singing songs, right at the National Stadium. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And what about Phoebe?
Yeah, I thought Bernard was gonna steal my same experience, but my first most significant one I could remember was when I was 11 in primary 5. So what happens is they actually allow all primary 5 students to actually watch a National Day Parade preview across Singapore. Yeah. So that would be my most significant one. I think in my year it was probably held at a national stadium, so I definitely remembered seeing the preview of the parade, all the floats and marching and all the fancy stuff.
Okay. So is there a particular tradition or custom that happens every year that you guys participate in, or just something that is a part of Singapore's Independence Day?
I guess if you're not at the stadium or you're not at the parade,
Watching on TV, definitely.
Yeah, you're probably with your family members and
Okay.
and turning on the TV and watching the parade from the television.
Right.
So yeah, it's really more of a family day, I guess. And
Okay.
if it's on the weekend, actually, you get people leaving the country to spend.
That's ironic.
That's
Yeah.
very honest.
Okay.
No, but a lot of Singaporeans actually watch the preview at home. So when you try calling, McDonald's or KFC on the day itself, they'll tell you that they're fully packed for delivery that evening, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, because they're busy delivering to everyone's
Yeah.
homes.
We were staying home for dinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the National Stadium? Because I think a few of you mentioned the National Stadium. What happens over there? What about like parades, festivals, concerts, performances?
Are you talking about the old National Stadium or the new one?
Oh, perhaps you can clarify.
Yes.
Yeah, there was the old National Stadium. It was all constructed made of concrete, really old, gold and grey, the conventional type of stadium.
Uh-huh.
At around 40,000 seating. Is that it? 40,000 seats?
I think less, actually.
Less than that. Yeah, it was in Singapore for the past 30 years, and then after that it was demolished. It was replaced by the new sports hub. What else can I talk about it?
So have you seen any like performances, how people, will just fill up the whole stadium to celebrate this Independence Day?
I think as a basic, everyone dresses in white and red when you're talking about the audience.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just, atmosphere and all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess there's usually like a very standard a template or schedule. There's the live performances. We have the armed forces doing their parade. We have the president going around
Right.
in a jeep like waving to everyone. And then at the end it's a bit of like a party, and then it ends up with the fireworks. So it's pretty standard template every year. But of
Okay.
course
Right.
they try to innovate in the type of performances and the content.
Well, you guys did share about how you guys did celebrate it, this Singapore Independence Day before, but then towards we are heading to celebrate the Singapore 50th Independence Day, and perhaps you can share why is it so significant. Of course, it's a 50. The number tells a lot, but other than that, do you have any expectations or preparations that you guys been doing, or that you guys want to share?
Well, I guess besides the number 50, it's not so much about preparations. I think for most of us, especially younger Singaporeans, it's more about looking back and going like, wow, we're so lucky that just 50 years ago, we were technically not a country, and here we are today, and I think the peace and economic progress we've been experiencing has been pretty decent. It's been pretty good. So I think it's more of a reflection for most people. I know that and everything's coming out in full force, SG50 and so a lot of rah-rah. But down inside, it's really a lot of reflection, and especially with Lee Kuan Yew's passing earlier this year,
Right.
It's been a bit more solemn. It's been a bit more reflective, I guess.
Okay. What about Phoebe? Any input from you? How is SG50 different from the other years, or what is so significant about it this time?
I think just to add on what he said just now, I think there was a lot of hype from the start of the year instead of usually things start getting exciting only in July when you see decorations all over.
Right.
But for this year, I think the government kind of made an effort to create a hype from the start of the year, starting off with a pretty impressive, New Year's Eve countdown with a huge concert at the floating platform. And I think with the passing of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, a lot of the younger generation started to be interested in Singapore's history, and I think it all tied up very nicely. So I think we have a lot of shows on TV, documentaries talking about the past of Singapore from the start of the year. So everything basically just leads up to this weekend.
Okay. And you guys mentioned a bit about the younger generation and how they perceive this Independence Day. So how is it different from the younger and the older generation in terms of how they view the Independence Day, or in terms of their participation in Independence Day? Anybody? Bernard, maybe?
I'm trying to think about it.
Yeah, it's a very that deep question.
Well, maybe just the differences between your parents and yourself. How do they view Independence Day compared to you, or maybe even Singapore itself?
Um,
Or have they shared any stories or experiences with you? Or you do you see any differences how they celebrate Independence
Or
Day?
anyone, Nicholas, Phoebe,
yes.
you're welcome
I
to.
guess
Yeah.
I guess for some of our grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think they just see it as like, wow, Singapore has come so far,
Right.
or like we've built this, country together, and like, wow. And I think for the younger generation, we're a bit of in the middle of, like, oh, we're in this such awesome, a country.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I guess we take things for granted,
Mm-hmm.
and we've become a bit more comfortable. But at the same time, with what what Phoebe has mentioned earlier about with all these documentaries and everything that's been coming up, especially with Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's passing, we tend to become a bit more reflective. I guess I'm not saying that the younger generation we're slightly ignorant to the efforts put in by our seniors or our family members, our grandparents, and the early pioneers. But I think we've become a bit more reflective about it, and we're quite grateful to what we have.
Okay, so I think we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll move on to the second part of the discussion.
You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia. Hello and welcome back to Duran ASEAN. This is Gowri.
And you're with Grace.
And this is your Anything Can Happen Friday, where today we're discussing SG50 celebrating the little red dot just south of Malaysia.
Right.
And we have, of course, 3 people from Singapore who are joining us via Skype, and we're talking to them about the celebrations this weekend. So maybe, Grace, you want to kick off the discussion with asking Bernard about his experience in NS.
Yeah, you already asked me to ask him. Well, Bernard, so you had just a month before you finish your service there, but then throughout your serving there, how was it like celebrating Independence Day?
Basically, we have a SAF day on July the 1st. Every soldier in the Army, Navy, and Air Force will stand up and recite the Armed Forces Oath.
Okay.
Each soldier would pledge to defend the nation and to uphold the democratic values of the nation.
So how about your sort of feeling and then expectation when it comes to commemoration or independence ceremony in national service?
My feelings?
Yes.
I do feel a sense of patriotism. I mean, it's kind of like a reaffirmation of the values of Singapore.
Right.
And what we have gone through, and what, as a citizen of Singapore, what community I'm part of, you know.
Right.
It's a process that reaffirms a collective conscience.
How about Nicholas? I mean, you served the National Army as well, right?
So actually, I was in the police force. So
Oh, okay.
it actually does. It's under national service, but it doesn't come under the armed forces. It comes
Right.
the home team. So I mean, we have our own police day parade and stuff, which is actually quite fun. I actually was involved in the parade.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a time to just see like, wow, we really got a really good police force.
And
So it's I think a lot of things that we do in Singapore, it's really to inculcate pride and kind of like make people aware of actually what we have and why we have it. I think it goes all the way back to some of the early security issues we've had as a country growing up. With during the communist era, time when there was problems with the communists in Malaya. Where we really needed to build up both our external defense and our internal defense.
So, Phoebe, I have a question. With your experiences so far celebrating Independence Day in Singapore, do you feel more united with people in Singapore?
Or do you feel less patriotic because you were never in NS?
I'm pretty much very devoted to Singapore, having been born and bred here throughout my whole life, and I'm actually one of those who are very thankful for what I have.
Uh-huh.
But I think I see National Day is, I think someone mentioned just now, that it's really a time to get together for family, friends, and all. I mean, in school, you sing all the songs with your classmates, and I think probably in primary school, I probably took part in some performances as well, performing on stage. So there's just a lot of, celebrative food, getting together, time of bonding and all.
Do you believe her, guys?
I think we really do. Yeah, it's really about family. Funnily enough, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I think I want to ask Bernard. Earlier, you were mentioning something about how the government was building national consciousness by having a couple of projects. You want to elaborate more on that?
For example, I can definitely tell you lots of examples of this
Okay.
kind of reaffirmations. Yeah.
Right.
For example, the government is using the media to reaffirm a collective conscience. For example, there's this program that was broadcasted months ago during during our Golden Jubilee this year. It's called The Day It Rained on Our Parade.
Uh-huh.
So basically, the show was about the first National Day Parade of 1966, which a year after we gained independence from Malaysia.
Right.
It actually rained on the first National Day Parade. Everyone was drenched. The soldiers, the ministers, Lee Kuan Yew they were all drenched. So what the government wanted to convey was that, the rain is actually a symbol of all the obstacles that were facing Singapore. But then, in spite of that rain, in spite of all the obstacles that we have had, we ran through them. We ran through all the hurdles. We destroyed all of them, and then in the end, we are third world. We came from third world to first.
Okay.
That's
So-
very inspiring.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the rain did not actually deter you guys, although it was seen as a bad omen, but you sort of overcame that and proved it wrong.
Yeah.
And let's move on. Since you mentioned Lee Kuan Yew as well, I think that brings me to my next question. Maybe you guys can each tell me what you guys remember about Lee Kuan Yew, or some of his notable policies that helped to get Singapore to where it is today.
I mean, he's a strong leader, but doesn't necessarily mean I agree with all of his policies.
Okay.
There's this policy which he called the graduate mothers policy. It was a scheme to get university graduate couples to to give birth to more babies.
Ah, okay. Smart babies.
Exactly right. Like, it sounds. Sometimes it sounds a bit like funny or ridiculous, right? Like, he wants like he wanted graduate males to marry graduate females so that the children, the offspring that they produce will be of, graduate quality or. But if you look at it, that is how far the extent of his thinking as to how, Singapore should become successful. In some ways.
Quality babies.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, some people were a bit upset about. I think it was just how it was portrayed, right, or how it was perceived. There's so many. Actually, there's so many policies that were quite evasive. There's this thing about the population where at first he was afraid that too many babies would be born and it would affect the economic development of the country because we need to take care of too many young kids.
Right.
And in the early 60s and 70s, there was this two-child policy where you were encouraged to only have 2 children. And if you were to have any more, there would be policies in place that would make those, there'll be disadvantages to those children, maybe in forms of, monetary incentives or for school may not be given to you like bursaries and stuff like that. And my grandma actually was one of those people who was affected by it. She has mentioned that she was really upset that she could not have more children than she had wanted to. So it was a really invasive policy. And then later on in the 80s and 90s, they realized that, oh no, we don't have enough babies. They started to have this, more children is good, more children, to look after you when you grow old type of thing to get more kids out, and there'll be more incentives if you have more children. So, some of the policies became really invasive, where
Mm.
it really affected your own family life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Nicholas, couldn't your
yeah.
grandmother have given birth in Malaysia and brought a baby back to Singapore?
Oh my god.
Well,
Solution to that.
well, I think, uh, I don't know how it works because my mom and my aunt, her two oldest children
Oh, right.
were born before the separation, but
Okay.
her third child was born after, so she already had three kids
Mm.
post separation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she wanted more, but she
Yeah,
wasn't
but
allowed.
Lee Kuan Yew said no.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
speaking of that, right, it's still a problem, isn't it? I mean, in terms of population, they're still encouraging you guys to have more babies. Because when I visited my friend in NUS, it seems they had little envelopes on their dorm doors where people are encouraged to leave love letters because they're encouraging more people to get into a relationship, get married, and make more babies.
I think they're actually encouraging more university graduates to.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the point.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like a population issue has always been a problem for Singapore. I mean, firstly, we're too small, and then we don't want too many people. But now that everyone's being educated and career-minded, no
Yeah.
one wants to settle down or have children because the standard of living is just too high.
Right.
So when that happens, and then the policy changes, okay, now people are not giving birth. We need to somehow make them reproduce.
Okay.
It's just a vicious cycle, and it's just the way of life that we have here in
Right.
Singapore.
And do you feel the pressure, Phoebe, being a female and everything?
Oh my gosh, it's issue.
Don't go-
It's quite funny actually. So
Yeah.
I am an NUS graduate.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
the thing is, a lot of my friends, before you actually receive your certificate, you actually receive a letter from SDU asking you to join them. Basically,
Okay.
SDU will say, oh my gosh, I don't even know what it stands for after all the making fun of it. But basically,
Unit.
the thing is, it's a dating unit in Singapore.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like,
Social Development Unit. or
yeah,
something like
That's
that, SDN,
something like
I
that.
see you. Okay.
So basically, yeah, it ties in with all the, bringing graduates together so that they can, produce more smart
Singapore's
babies.
really strange. Yeah.
Interesting. And maybe you guys can tell me a bit about your current Prime Minister as well, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong. What is the perception of the young people about Mr. Lee Hsien Loong?
Son of on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, he's a bit less charismatic than his father.
Okay.
I mean, granted, right? I mean, you guys agree.
Softer.
Softer.
Soft, yeah.
I think if you look at when you see,
Bite. He still has the bite and the raw.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And
So do you have
yeah.
any expectations because
Yeah.
his father had done a lot of work and also almost everyone in Singapore do remember what he has done. But then do you have expectations such like his son can carry on what his father done or continue his work?
no.
No, he's not capable of doing that.
He's eminently qualified to do so, given that he graduated from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Wow.
But then I'm just really concerned that he's not being as consultative as he that I expected him to.
Okay.
Right. Then what are the other concerns that you would love to share?
I think just to add on to Bernard first.
Sure.
See with Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, during separation and until he stepped down as prime minister, there was a period of time where it's like no nonsense. We gotta get this right. I'm just gonna make what I think the policies or the decisions that I feel is right for the country, and you just shut up and listen to what I say, literally.
Uh-huh.
But with Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, I mean a few things. Firstly, he's taking over his dad, so obviously there's some pressure, I guess,
Right.
to him, to his success. But I think he also wants to create his own legacy, which is fair. But then at the same time, with the current situation in Singapore now, I think with the advent of social media and the new forms of media in the digital and online space, the government has had to take a more consultative approach, which unfortunately was done after they realized that, hey, we can't just do things the way we used to,
Right.
where the people are becoming more vocal. So I do see some effort in our Prime Minister trying to, get in touch with people, but I don't think we can expect him to be as like Mr. Lee Kuan Yew.
But has he done anything specifically for the younger generation? Has he been trying to be more active on Facebook, Twitter, or anything else?
He takes a lot of selfies, so.
Does he?
Yeah. I mean, lots of selfies, so I guess he's trying.
He's trying really hard, huh?
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you guys want to add on about Mr. Lee Hsien Loong? Maybe what are his current efforts and any of your comments about the way he's running the country?
I mean, he was being consultative by implementing the Singapore conversations. It's a big public relations exercise designed to actually solicit opinions and future plans for Singapore in the next 50 years.
Yeah.
So basically, they were I think it was a month long, more than a month long exercise of consultations with grassroots leaders, youth, schools, hospitals, designed to pave the way for Singapore in the next 50 years. So, yeah, I would hand that. I would close to him.
Yeah. Right. Not only that, there have been quite a few TV programs where there's like a host who will host a member from the government, either an MP or a minister, and there'll be discussions about certain things that are basically on the minds of Singaporeans, population issues, foreign talent, the influx of foreign talent into Singapore, where there's some discussion. And I even saw one or two programs where they actually do a day in the life of a minister, where they would actually follow a minister and see what he actually does the whole day to deserve his dollar salary. Okay. So I think they're trying to be a bit more open and trying to be a bit more transparent, and I have to give them some credit for that.
Okay. So I think we're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we'll discuss more about celebrating the Little Red Dot.
You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're still with Gowri
and Grace,
and of course we have Bernard, Nicholas, and Phoebe with us here today, all the way from Singapore, and we're discussing the Independence Day and other issues as well. So for this last segment, maybe I want to ask you guys. Firstly, what would you consider a Singapore pride? Something that most Singaporeans are proud of, and whenever you meet someone new, you just have to tell them about this.
You have to visit Singapore because of ...
The food.
The food, really? I thought that's a Malaysian thing.
Yeah, I knew that was
coming. All right.
Yeah, but
that's a Penang thing, actually.
Think about it, right? I mean, why only food? I mean, is that the only part of our national identity?
I think besides food, maybe because I don't know if it's Singapore pride, but I think it's maybe grateful. Besides the recent breakdowns, we've got pretty decent transportation system. We've got pretty decent, efficient government, governance style of running things. We're really proud of all these things. We're proud of the fact that it's so safe that you can walk. Your daughters could walk, or your wives or your sisters could walk on the streets at 3 a.m.
Right.
And you still can go to sleep without really caring so much about them because you know that they're gonna get home safe.
Okay.
Literally, right? That's what not the Singaporeans say, but that's what the expatriates here say, that that's how they feel. They feel so safe, they feel so comfortable, everything's run efficiently, and I think that's what we're proud about.
Okay.
So it's a security.
Yeah.
I mean, I can agree with that, And how about Nicholas?
And
Bernard. Bernard, sorry.
Bernard and Phoebe, yeah.
Besides security, I think it's about how smooth our country is functioning.
Okay.
I mean, you could say it's relatively smooth because it really takes only an hour to get from one end to the other, and it's really quickly as well because you just sit on the train, you get from the east to the west in I think 1.5 hours. That's really quick. And for example, government services is are relatively faster than other countries.
Yeah, there's not a lot of like waiting in line, taking a queue number.
Right.
You're actually served quite fast. I think actually even our healthcare is something that we don't really think about all the time. But when you really go to when you go to the hospital in Singapore and you look at it, to us Singaporeans it's probably like a normal hospital. But I see how people from overseas, when they walk into a hospital, they're like, what's this palace? I mean, I have relatives in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So I've been to like Assunta Hospital, for example, and I've seen the differences of how it is. Well, I'm not saying
Right.
that's bad or anything, but it's
You're just used to palace-like hospitals in Singapore.
exactly like it's like how you walk into a shopping mall
Yeah.
and then there's a smell.
Ah, okay.
Like there's
Yeah.
a unique of that shopping mall.
Mhm.
It's the same thing when you walk into a hospital. There's
Right.
that pleasant smell. Everything's green. There's trees all around.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you don't feel like in a hospital really. You actually feel like in a hotel.
What about Phoebe?
I think just to add on, I think stability, cleanliness is something that we pride ourselves on a lot, and probably something that I have taken advantage of, taken for granted when I talk to friends from my other countries, especially as a female, and the security issue. But I think if you ask me personally, if there was just one thing that I personally was proud of for Singapore, I think it's the multiracialism.
Okay.
I think that's something very unique here. I mean, I personally come from a heritage of mixed blood, so different races and all this living together, and that results in all our different, food and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And well, what about some of the stereotypes about Singaporeans when you
We are
meet
kiasu.
someone new?
Yes. FOLO, fear of losing out.
Fear of losing out. So that's
Yeah.
the main stereotype about Singaporeans.
I think
you
that's the
get some,
first thing that everybody thinks of.
People who want to break against the trend and do things with their lives. Yeah, you do get that a lot in Singapore.
Okay. And well, are you guys actually kiasu? What do you think? Do you have a fear of losing out, that you always have to be the first one at the finish line? No.
I mean, I'm a bit of a kiasu guy.
I think it depends. I think everybody is kiasu. It's just
Everyone
like-
is
in
yes.
Singapore or
Yeah.
everyone?
I think everybody in general.
You want to be
It's what
first.
you're kiasu about. It's what you're kiasu about, right? That's what it is. So it depends on what you feel losing out.
Okay, it's a very diplomatic answer from Nicholas.
Yeah, it's true, right? Are you fear of losing out like that toy you want to collect from McDonald's? Do you have a fear of losing out?
In relationships, for example.
Relationships? Are you kiasu about relationships? Yeah, so I think everybody is kiasu in some way, or has what's the word? An element of kiasuism in them.
Right.
Kiasuism,
Okay.
what? That's another word.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you the million-dollar question here. What is the younger generation's perception about Malaysia? Do you do you like Malaysia? Do you despise Malaysia? Do you think it's a messed up country?
Jing, jing,
What do
jing,
you guys
jing.
think?
I love it. Yeah.
I don't think we actually have any bad views of Malaysia, really.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, most Singaporeans, we have family members. Singapore and Malaysia are really, besides, don't talk about politics.
Okay.
We really share a lot of kinship.
Yes.
We probably, every one of us, either in some way has some family in Malaysia. So I think growing up, going in and out of Malaysia, it's just like, it's just another part of us growing up. So I don't think we have anything bad about it. We go there, we play with our cousins, we go and eat the food, and we debate on which country's food is better, Yeah, I don't think we really have anything bad about Malaysia. But I can say that, with this SG50 thing, and we're looking at Malaysia, maybe we can say that we're probably more grateful to, or feel more lucky to be in Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's the pride.
That's fine.
It's a jeng, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like with what's going on now in Malaysia, with
For sure.
what's happening in the political scene, there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of instability, and the currency is not as is getting weaker.
Yep.
So
It's good
I think
good for us.
yeah, I mean it's good for us, you know. No, I mean seriously, like
Right.
it's good for us because for us young Singaporeans, woohoo, you know, we can go to Penang, we can go shopping, we can yeah, it's
Like
like
emperor.
it's yeah,
How
you
about-
can
How
yeah.
about Phoebe?
Well, actually, I know it depends on how you define younger generation. I wouldn't even classify myself as the younger generation. So if you ask me about the younger kids these days, to be very, very open and honest, I don't think they have much views. I don't think they actually care. You know,
Okay.
everyone's like, you know, so protected and happy growing up in Singapore. They don't even care about what's happening around them. It's just like, Singapore's like this, and I get everything I want here in this country, and everything's just taken for granted. You know, that's just how the younger generation works. That's in my view.
And what's your
Yeah.
perception about Malaysia personally?
I do have some-
I have relatives there, so
Oh, okay.
I used to go down quite a bit. So I to be very honest, it's just really KL,
Okay.
Oh.
and I think there's not that much of a
Right.
difference between KL and Singapore.
Okay.
Oh, there is. I think.
So Nicholas was right when he said pretty much everyone has relatives in Malaysia.
Yeah, it's true. You know, my grandma, her entire family is in Malaysia. I go to KL very often now, especially for work.
Okay.
And I mean, I do see the differences. I mean, come on, you know, when you go to KL Central and I have to take the train, I'm gonna be very honest.
Yeah.
Just to go into KL Central, I have to make one round just to enter KL Central.
That's
you know,
true.
I mean, come on, you know, like I just like pay the taxi like so much of money just for him to get me into KL Central and then out of KL
Right.
Central. And a friend of mine who's Malaysian, by the way, so it's not a Singaporean man saying this, says that, you know, KL, there's always construction going on. It's like they're digging a hole to like create something, and then like 4 or 5 months later, they're filling it up again, and they're digging another hole. And yeah,
Hey,
so
hey, give us some time. We're getting somewhere. Okay.
so I think in that retrospect, I'm definitely more grateful. You know, but it's not really, but I don't think it's you know, SG50. You know, coming back to SG50, it's really about, oh, you know, Singapore is you know, it's now this economic miracle. They got kicked out of Malaysia. You know, it's like the sibling that got kicked out of the house, but they're a lot better.
Oh my god, that's a good idea.
Yeah, no, but you know, it's true, right? Like you guys kicked us out. We were left on our own. So yeah.
Nicholas,
yeah.
the feeling
But-
was mutual.
Wow, I'm getting very emotional here now.
Nah.
But I think at the same time, when I do go to Malaysia, the
Yeah.
standard of living, the quality of life is so much better. You know, I think with the economic success that we've had, it has also come with its own negative consequences. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of, you know, at work, and all these things just add up. You know, in Malaysia, I see my cousins, like their kids, when they come home after school, they hit the padang and they go and play football in the field and everything like that. Singaporean kids, when they come home, they go straight to tuition. It's like, oh, school's over. Yes, I go home, and then an hour later, the tuition teacher is there teaching tuition. So yeah, I think the quality of life in Malaysia is better, and it's something that I actually look forward to whenever I go down.
But it's very ironic because Malaysian kids, they're also, I guess they are following the examples of Singapore as well. Nowadays, the kids are very, very busy. They wouldn't go to the mud to, you know, dirty themselves or playing football. Nowadays,
Really?
it's one
Is
after the other. Yeah, tuition after tuition after tuition after school.
So
Oh no,
we're
I didn't know that.
So we're all already at the end of our segment. Before we wrap things up, I just want to quickly ask three of you, what is your future expectation or aspiration for Singapore?
Sorry, the future of what?
No, your aspirations or expectations for Singapore in the next 5 years.
Wow.
I'm sure you guys don't plan to go outside of Singapore
Or
for
just
living.
anything, any part of Singapore that you'd like to see improve or get better.
I stay in Bukit Panjang, so I really hope my downtown line is completed soon.
Right.
Construction
Yes,
has
there we
been going
go.
on, you know, forever, and it keeps changing my roads. I get so confused.
Right.
So the line is done soon, and then I get a good
Right,
straight
there we
bus
go.
downtown.
Yeah, I think that that's true. Right? Like this is what we're concerned about. When is our MRT line going to be up so we can? It's more convenient for us. But I guess in general, like aspiration is to just not. It's just to not. It's just to keep what we have, going,
Okay.
and to not lose sight of how hard our forefathers have worked to build up what we have today. I think that the aspiration is to. It's not take things for granted. That's my personal aspiration for Singaporeans,
Right.
and to work hard to keep what we have.
Brilliant.
And Bernard?
Yeah.
I think it's about staying abreast of all recent technological and social changes. It's also about keeping an international perspective on things, on issues and perspectives, while staying rooted to our local communities, staying connected to our friends, but at the same time also being connected to events abroad worldwide.
All right.
So thank you so much, guys, for joining us this morning and sharing your insights about Singapore and as well as SG50. It was great talking to you guys.
Oh, thank you very much.
Have a great Friday.
Oh, thank you. It's public holiday. Yay.
Oh, yes.
Days of
All the way
holiday.
till Monday.